Hello friends, you're watching College Football Now here live from the CFP National Championship. I am Tom Downey, alongside me is James Yoder, back in the Bay once again.
Yeah, Tom, it's great to be out here. Alabama, Clemson, Tom, the fans rolling in. I'm seeing a little more Clemson than Alabama action out there. They're feeling exciting. We've done Media Day, Tom, all the different events going around here. I'm excited for this one. Two powerhouses. We're going to jump into Alabama's 5 keys to the game. If they accomplish these things, Tom, they'll be walking away with their 3rd national title in the past 4 years. Let's kick it in, take us away to key to the game number 1.
That is if the passing attack thrives, and how things have changed a little bit too. This is not your, last year's Alabama offense. Tua is now in charge at the helm at quarterback, and the offense has drastically changed from being more of a ground control, keep your offense on the field, keep the defense off the field, control the clock, to being one of the most prolific passing attacks in all of college football, because Tua has been stupid good as he was against Oklahoma when he had more TDs than incomplete passes.
Yeah, Tom, it's amazing what the most talented team in the country, the most talented consecutive roster over a decade dynasty has been, when they actually unleash and play like they don't have all the talent, play the schemes that take advantage of mismatches, take advantage of athleticism, and it's all due to this guy, Tom. It's Tua Tagovailoa, and we were at Media Day, took this film here. I don't know about you, but I told you this when we were coming back from it. Tua has this aura around him. He looks like, if he wasn't a football player, that he'd be like, an actor or some sort of famous person, a politician. The it factor. He controlled the room unlike any other player there, unlike any coach. He was more charismatic, had more of that it factor than even Nick Saban, who has been in front of the camera more than maybe anybody in the country in football in the past 20 years plus. So I think Tua is he doesn't get scared by the moment. We saw that last year. He came in and maybe one of the worst plays in college football history, followed by maybe the best player in college football history. Back-to-back plays, got sacked for a big loss, and then just steps up in the pocket, dime, that 40-plus yarder for the championship win. So the passing attack for Alabama has got to thrive. They've got to take advantage of what Clemson is going to put on them, which is to try and attack Tua, get pressure on him big time.
And of course, it's not just Tua who's a big factor in that passing attack. This Alabama team is loaded with immensely talented wide receivers. Jerry Jeudy, one of them, just 63 grabs, but over 1,000 yards. A big play threat. Yeah,
definitely a big play threat, Tom. We got a chance to converse with Jeudy. A big guy, Tom. I stood next to him for quite a while. I mean, he is a lot bigger of a player than I believe I thought he was, and was excited to hear what he said. And he just basically gave the perspective that, look, that we are going to go after him. We're going to run our game plan. DEVONTA Smith, another player that Clemson,
semifinals.
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. 6 grabs, 104 yards, a touchdown. Got that 50-yarder against Oklahoma a little over a week ago. And then, of course, Henry Ruggs III, Tom, 45 catches on the year, 738 yards, but added 11 touchdowns. That is the depth of this Alabama receiving corps. They've got 3 guys who are probably the #1 receiver on any team in the country.
It's not just those guys. Jalen Waddle is a home run threat as well, both in the return game and as a receiver. Irv Smith is going to be an early draft pick at tight end. They go multiple deep across the board there. So for Tua, James, I'll ask you this. How many yards will he throw for against Clemson?
I don't think, I said in our segment with Clemson, our keys to the game for this one, I thought Trevor Lawrence would go off. But Alabama's got a better running attack. I know Travis Etienne, but I think Alabama has just a better running scheme. Also 3 guys that they go deep in. So I'm going to go a little less. I think Tua is going to be about 275. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game, Tom. I know the over-under is low. They both have great defense, but I'm going to go 275 for him.
You hinted at that with the rushing attack for Alabama. Well, they have a 3-headed attack this year. Joshua Jacobs, Damien Harrison, Najee Harrison. They need to get going.
Another guy who impressed me with size, Tom. Gosh, Najee Harris he looks like an NBA, small forward or something standing next to him. He is a beast, Tom. 108 carries, true sophomore. Hasn't really emerged as the superstar running back now through 2 years of college football. That people expected him to be, as at one time the #1 recruit in that 2017 recruiting class, Tom. But he is not alone in that backfield. Najee Harris, also Josh Jacobs, who had the big time game against Oklahoma, 98 yards on only 15 carries, Tom. He is a guy who's just getting you positive yards every single play, and the guy who's been there, it seems like forever. Also, Damien Harris, Tom, 819 yards on the year, those 9 touchdowns.
If he can find a way to get the extra to get to 1,000, to be 3 straight years from with 1,000 yards.
That'd be crazy. And I know he had a chance. I don't know if we should look this up before the show, but he had a chance to be Alabama's all-time leading rusher. I can't remember if he actually got there or not. But
I don't think he's going to get there. I'll have to double check that.
Yeah, but he held court today, Tom, at the College Football Playoff, or when we went to the College Football Playoff Media Day. That 3-headed rushing attack, Tom, is going going to be vital. If each one of those guys is getting 4, 5, 6 yards a clip time, there's no way that Clemson's going to stop this Alabama offense.
One guy's going to bust through, and then he becomes the hot hand as well. So, all right, folks, who will win, or who will be the Alabama's leading rusher versus Clemson? I almost get to our way in there. It's going to be Josh Jacobs. Is it Damien Harris or Najee Harris? Who you got?
I'm going to go with Josh Jacobs. I think the hot hand from the Oklahoma game, he was seeming to get the action. And I actually think that when you just, college football coaches are no different. They're people too, Tom. And the Harrises are the ones that everyone thinks about. So I actually think there'll be some sort of okay, Jacobs in the game. Maybe they're going to pass this game, and Jacobs will be the one that busts one, because maybe they'll take a step back to be focusing on, their pass defense at that time. I think it's going to be Josh Jacobs. I don't know if he'll break 100. I think each guy will get over 40, 50 yards. One of them, will get the hot hand. The other one to get 75 to 100 potentially. All
right, kind of playing along with that there is the offensive line for Alabama. They need to win that trenches battle against that great Clemson front.
Yeah, sure. And Tom, and Clemson is certainly missing one player, Dexter Lawrence, not playing. He is suspended with PED positive drug test. But this Alabama offensive line, led by Jonah Williams, Tom, is one of the best in the country, as it always is. You're just consistently getting top 100 players, 5-star players. Williams being a player you think is going to be a first-round NFL draft pick this coming season. But they didn't seem, Tom, to give much impact. Dexter Lawrence not being in the game would make much impact. I think they're just approaching it with, we're going to block the guy in front of us. It doesn't matter if this is a team in Clemson that has three All-Americans, first-rounders on the line, or if we're going against the Citadel in the middle. We are going to bring the pain against anybody we want, and that's why Alabama has had such an amazing offense this year, Tom. Really, the breakout, I think the biggest change in college football, in the past decade is Alabama becoming a kind of, from some regards, an air raid style offense. Not nearly an true air raid, but they are pass first offense.
They chuck around a lot more. They're 6th in the nation in passing yards, and that's not the ML for Bama.
And how about this? If Jalen Hurts wasn't there and they were in a few closer games, they would have been number 1 by far. I mean, if they just left 2 in the game to the whole fourth quarter.
If they tried in a lot of those fourth quarter
He'd probably have stats more like Dwayne Haskins did at Ohio State, because they had nearly as many more close games. 50 touchdowns, 5,000 yards passing from Tua had. They had a little more.
Of course, that Clemson defense is incredibly stout this year, and even though they're number 1, number 2 in most of the categories, it almost feels like they're overlooked.
Yeah, they definitely are overlooked, Tom. And when we broke down, we're looking at these keys to the game, I was just impressed on Clemson's side how consistent they were on both sides of the ball. But their defense is a little overlooked, Tom. I know everyone talked all year about this defensive line, but when you lead the nation in points per game, Tom, if you are second in rushing per game, if you are second in defense, that means you are just amazing. And when the fact that teams are going in hurry up all day because Clemson's getting these big leads, so they're passing all day in the second half, I think that even speaks more to the fact that this defense is a little underrated.
All right, folks, if you haven't already subscribed to us here on YouTube, what are you doing?
What are you waiting for?
What are you doing? Hit that subscribe button right now. If you're watching on Facebook, head over to youtube.com/chatsportstv. We just don't do college football, NFL, NBA. We even do some golf. James.
Yeah, we do a little golf here. We do a little UFC as well, Tom. Guy passed me in the hallway, saw my my name tag, my media credential, looked at it, says Chat Sports, the TV network on YouTube. I said, You're damn right. That's why it's youtube.com/chatsportstv. Go ahead and subscribe. It will make you delete ESPN, Tom. Throw away your cable subscription.
Don't need ESPN anymore.
Chat Sports TV.
All right, folks, next key to the game here for Alabama, limit that dynamic Clemson passing attack. It's very funny how the similarities here between these two teams.
Yes.
Alabama went from Jalen Hurts to Tua. Clemson goes from Kelly Bryant, who was a runner like Hurts, to the more young and dynamic passer in Trevor Lawrence, who's been a revelation for this team.
Tom, these two teams played last year in the semifinal with non-senior quarterbacks who didn't go pro, and now a year later you've got 2 different guys that came in and be like, look, this didn't used to happen, Tom. When I was growing up, when I was a boy, when I was a wee boy.
Freshmen.
Yeah, they didn't play freshmen, and if you were a sophomore and you had a guy who took you to a good season prior to you just sat the bench until you waited. Rarely did they ever bench starters in college football. Meritocracy was not a thing. It was seniority that really ruled college football. So the fact that these guys come around, maybe we missed out on great quarterback performances from the 90s, early 2000s because of that meritocracy not ruling the day and seniority kind of leading the way. But these quarterbacks led you to the playoff last year, and you benched them for another player. I think it shows why why Dabo Swinney and Nick Saban are the best 2 in the game by far. And maybe Kirby Smart's right behind him benching a freshman starter with another freshman starter 2 years ago, Jacob Eason to Jacob Fromm.
Injury factor there, but still.
Yeah.
And then for Alabama, it's a great defense. It's still an Alabama defense, but not the dynamic number 1 by far defense that we're so used to seeing.
And it's a flip on what they've made their name on, made their reputation on. Alabama has been the defensive team in the country. Every year they be top 5 in almost all the categories now. Tom, now you're seeing that slip. Still not giving up as many points, but giving up a lot more yards through the air, certainly more through the ground. Not even in the top 10 in yards. Now, people say, of course, they got a big lead, so teams have to throw, have to go out a little more. But this isn't the 200-yard, 225-yard a game Alabama defense giving up less than 14 points we've seen.
You can beat them through the air. I think, as we mentioned with our Clemson preview, that's going to be the key for them. They have to find a way to get those dynamic receivers going, T. Higgins and so on, and find a way for that offense to be a better passing offense, which is kind of lessened 24th, but that factors in a good portion of the season where Kelly Bryant was playing a big role, and they didn't throw it as much.
Look at these numbers from Clemson. With a true freshman quarterback, split time, he started the first, Kelly Bryant started the first 4 games, and now that Trevor Lawrence has started the last 10, 3rd in the country in yards per game, Tom, 4th in points per game, top 10 rushing, and the passing numbers only got held back because they were splitting time earlier in the year. Had Trevor Lawrence been the starter the entire season, Tom, I think they'd be in the top 10 in passing
as well. And a common theme here for both these quarterbacks, and Trevor and Tua, is that they don't turn the ball over. Very, very rarely do they make mistakes, which is impressive for having such a young player. So who will win that turnover battle, Clemson or Alabama, which in most cases, normally the team that wins that ends up winning the game?
Yeah, I don't think that it's going to be a game where either team gets a lot of turnovers time. I wouldn't be surprised if there was no turnovers at all, at least on the offensive side. Maybe a special teams fumble or something like that.
I think it's more likely to have no turnovers than multiple turnovers in this game, which is weird to think about.
It would. I mean, both quarterbacks take such good care of the ball at times. The running backs aren't guys that put the ball up. These are just fundamentally sound teams. Being around both coaches, Tom, it's no surprise why these guys are the cream of the crop in college football, and their programs reflect that.
All right, last key to the game then is that defense stepping up. If you ask Nick Saban, I don't think he wants to get into a shootout with Clemson. I think he'd much rather have a low-scoring game. I think that favors Alabama maybe just a little bit more.
Yeah, sure, Tom. And we're looking at this is the 4th time these teams have played. And I know the one game didn't get into the 40s like the other did, but still, those 2 games, those 2 championship games, they felt like they were track meets. I know the one year, and maybe I'm getting my years confused a little in my head, but I know the one year we were like, gosh, this game is a disaster at halftime. I think it was the year Clemson won the national title in the 2016 season, and then by the end of the game, we're calling this an all-time.
Kenyon Drake had that kick return for touchdown. It's like, oh dear.
Yeah.
This is about to be Alabama running with it, and then, oops, no, they didn't.
Yeah, for sure. So the Alabama defense must step up, Tom. If they can rattle, Trevor Lawrence has not been in a close game, Tom, in his 10 starts at Alabama. We talked about the win, 30-3 win over Notre Dame being one of the closest games Clemson's played all year after Trevor Lawrence took over. And so with that being said, if the defense steps up, if they are playing from behind, which they haven't done with Trevor Lawrence as a starting quarterback, I think we have a different ball game than Clemson's expecting. They have played from the lead. Trevor Lawrence has never had to bring his team back when they're down, when he's been the starting quarterback.
And then some key players here often ties into some of those defensive guys. Quinnen Williams, who's I think will be a top 3 pick for sure in the NFL draft, barring some type of red flag that pops up, injury or otherwise. Mack Wilson, who's been a dynamic linebacker who actually might end up going back to him for his seniors. There's been some buzz about that. And a guy we haven't really discussed, but I think could be a massive difference maker in this matchup is Deonte Thompson, the free safety. Loves to watch film, and he's a playmaker in that back end, a true single-high free safety. One
note on Quinnen Williams here, Tom. He gave the answer. He almost threw some shade a week and a half, 2 weeks ago at Kyler Murray. I asked him about the difference between Kyler Murray and, of course, Trevor Lawrence. It seems that he was definitely coached because he nailed the answer almost like a politician. That's hey, Kyler's great and he can do the ball with his feet. We have to do that a little more. Trevor less. We've got to do X, Y, and Z. So he knew what he was giving for that answer.
I got a kick out of that because he kind of like had that flash in his eyes moments of like, oh, I'm about to say something bad about Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
Saban's gonna murder me.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's that clip of him answering that question before the Orange Bowl time was all time because he just froze up. He just almost started his words, didn't know what to say, then just stepped back and smiled and just didn't say anything, just almost paused. Right?
Yeah.
It was pretty amusing. So that defense with Quinnen Williams might be the #1 pick in the draft himself, Tom. Some have projected him to be. They need to step up. They need to put Trevor Lawrence's passing attack and really this Clemson offense that has been remarkable over the last 10 games. They need to definitely put the hurt on them, or this could be a shootout. And I think, like you said, that'll ultimately favor Clemson potentially.
All right, so prediction time then. Who will win the national title? Let us know in the comment section. Type C for Clemson, A for Alabama. James, what do you have?
Tom, I know this is our Alabama preview, but I think I might go Clemson, Tom. I really, I know that Alabama's won 2 of the last 3 years. When I was around the players, I'll give you an example. A few years back, the first college football playoff, Oregon, Ohio State, Tom, we definitely we thought that that Ohio State's players were a little better, a little better with the media, and it turned out that way in the game.
I got Alabama in this one, folks.